Growing up, I never really was into watches. When I was in primary school, secondary school, and I see my friends and all these my classmates around wearing like these huge G-Shocks on their wrists, I always find it to be quite ugly and quite tacky. I always like my wrist to be a little bit more like, I don't know, free and empty. And for a time, like you could always see the clock on the wall or on your phone. So I never really understood the idea of wearing watches. It was only after a couple of years later when I got my first smartwatch, which was a Samsung Galaxy something. I can't remember what it was. It's broken already. But I bought it because I thought it was quite cool that you could see like your notifications, you could read messages, you could technically like answer calls on your watch, on your wrist, which I thought was quite cool. And I know smartwatches are a bit of a taboo in the watch collecting hobby, but for me, I find them to be a really, really nice gateway into watches because it gets you into a habit of having something on your wrist, and that's where we are today. And I thought today, for 2025, I'd share a little bit about some of the watches that I have and what they mean to me. And what better way to start with this that's on my wrist, and that's the Apple Watch Ultra. I know a lot of people hate Apple Watches, but I find them to be very, very useful. I work as a photographer and filmmaker, so I'm always on the kind of like on set, so I don't like having to check my phone all the time, and so this is more of a practical, and I would say this is the watch that I wear pretty much the most, mainly because of how practical it is. I love how you can like see right under the sun. The battery life is amazing, better, not as good as like any Casio, but like again, like there's more functionality to this than any of the watches that I own. So the very first watch that I got, or not technically the first watch, I had some like, I think an Orient and a Seiko, but I sold those off. But this, I would say this is my first luxury watch. This is the Omega Moon watch. I think every collector kind of has this in their watch, but this is very special to me because I actually had a previous production house prior to this. It was with a friend, but I'm no longer there already. And because, we were, I think, about 2 years already, and we finally found some form of success. And that's where I wanted to kind of like commemorate how far we've been, because I've also been in the industry for a really, really long time. And yeah, this was the watch that kind of stood out to me, mainly because I am a big Hasselblad fan. I've got a 500 cm, which is basically what went to the moon and what took all the pictures on the moon. And kind of like the moon watch was a direct extension of it. And sort of all of the watches that I was researching, this was the one that really stood out to me. And one of the reasons why I chose the Hasselblad, minus it was slightly cheaper, I actually prefer the engravings on the back. It says like flight qualified by NASA in 1965 for all manned space missions. I prefer this. I prefer what it says on the back versus actually seeing the movement. And of course, like I think how the Hasselblad just plays with the light, I much prefer it. And I've actually got pretty small wrists, but surprisingly, as everyone would say, because of the lug to lug, I think, the Moon watch does wear very, very nicely. And it is one of the watches that it's a shame that it's associated to a memory that I no longer want to remember, but it is something that's still very important to me. So I've been contemplating selling this off, but I just can't because I actually really, really like the story. I might switch this out to something in the future, but we'll never know. So the next watch that came, actually this will be the first watch before this is the first watch before the Speedmaster, and this is the I can't really remember the name. This is the Hamilton Intramatic chronograph. I initially bought this because at that time I didn't want to spend like 20 grand on an Omega. I couldn't justify because I had never purchased anything that expensive outside of camera equipment, because obviously I make money from it. But I couldn't justify, and so I thought like, okay, let's just get something that's roughly similar. I mean, obviously when you're like starting out in watches, all chronographs look the same, all watches kind of like look the same. And I was looking through, and what kind of caught me was really this like very vintage look behind it. The lume on this is horrendous. I don't think there's any lume in it at all, but it looked very nice at that time, and I really enjoyed it, and it was within a price point that like made sense to me. And the reason why I chose the mechanical is I didn't understand they had like the mechanical and the automatic, and the automatic I think was like slightly like $1,000 more expensive, and I didn't really understand because obviously you don't know anything about watches. but I chose the mechanical, and I'm glad I did because I actually enjoy the process of winding your watches. But yeah, this is a watch I don't really wear that much anymore, occasionally, because basically the Speedmaster and some other chronographs that I have just take over. I've been contemplating selling this, but I really enjoy the look of this watch, and it's a reminder to me that if you want something, don't go like halfway. Save up for what you really want and not like settle for something that you don't. But still, very nice watch. So the next watch I have here is the, what is it called again? Right, the Moose watch. This was a gift from my girlfriend, and the reason why I really wanted to get a watch like this was mainly because I didn't really want to wear the Speedmaster all around. Sometimes it's like if you're going to like get something at groceries, like doesn't really make sense to, I don't really want to wear it. So I thought something like this, something that's a little bit, that has the similar look to it, and it's a bit, and obviously it's a quartz, so it like, you don't have to keep winding it. I like it for what it is. Again, I don't wear it that much already like the Hamilton, but it's just something nice to have in your collection, and it's just a gift that obviously I will never get rid of, because one thing is, as soon as I think I wore it the first day, I already scratched the crystal, which speaks volumes about the quality. But then again, I've scratched the Hasselite on my Moon watch as well a couple of times. I also like this color the most. They came out with quite a number already, but I think this one, the Jupiter, if I'm not mistaken, is the one that I like and stands out the most based on my skin color. The next watch I want to talk about is something that I don't actually wear at all, mainly because it's a little bit too big and I'm not a huge fan of this particular, and this is the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer. I didn't buy this. This is actually by extension an inheritance from my dad, because my dad passed away like last year, and this was the watch that he pretty much, that I recall him wearing for the majority of what I can remember of him. I think this was also his first really expensive watch, which I think around that time was like about 4,000 to 5,000. And he wore like the shit out of it when he passed away and I took over. It actually had this like the metal bracelet, and it was filthy as crap. Like, I don't think he has ever cleaned it, and I cleaned it out. I changed it out to this third party like NATO bond strap, because I didn't like how the metal bracelet actually fit on my hand. But again, I don't really wear this because I'm not a huge fan of the design. It is a quartz watch, which does make it quite nice, and also like the bezel does sound very nice. But it is a reminder of my dad, and occasionally, once in a while, I do wear this. It's just not as often as the other pieces. But obviously, again, a piece that I will probably never get rid of because it reminds me of my dad. Yeah. Next up is this, another, I feel like a very underrated watch, and this is the Longines Heritage Classic. I think this is the Sector Dial, that's the full name. This is probably a watch that I feel like goes under the radar for a lot of people. This is a watch that when I first saw it, I really liked. I love the design. It has this like very vintage look. Obviously, being the Sector Dial, very nice symmetrical proportions. But I bought this because when I left my previous production house, and I started up my own, and then I found some success. I feel like I'm not there yet, but I did have some success, and it was that almost pride of trying something new and doing something new and finding your way after doing something for so long. This was kind of like a reminder to me. There are some things I don't really like about this watch, particularly is the lug to lug is a little bit too long. I find that it does wear a little bit larger, even though I think it's a 37 mil. And also like the Longines, the G like falls onto one of the lines in the sector. Like it feels a little bit of an afterthought, and I don't really like that. Also, the quality of the second strap that came with this is horrendous. I already like tore it in half, like almost in half, like after a few months of wearing it. But I chose this, the white face and the blue strap, because I think it stands out a little bit more. It is a nice dress watch, but I find it pairs very well casually at the same time. Okay, so moving on to probably if I could keep one watch for the rest of my life, it would probably be this. So this is the Rolex Explorer, the 124270 36 mil. The story behind this was that before my dad passed last year, I actually wanted to get him a Rolex because, I mean, again, like coming from a family that's not really well off, again, Rolex has always been that like grail watch for a lot of people, especially a lot of Chinese people. You know, Rolex is a sense of like accomplishment, a sense of success. And my dad never really could bring himself to buy a Rolex because obviously it is a lot of money, and I think he had a lot more responsibilities. And as I was kind of finding a lot of success in my business and finding work here and there, I was gearing up to actually get him a Rolex. So the Rolex that I wanted to get him was actually the Explorer 2 because I thought it fit him. I didn't really think that the Submariner would look very nice on him, but it was never really the right time. I was waiting for like the prices to drop a little bit. It was I think like 40-50 grand to get the watch around there, and I just I couldn't pull myself to buy it yet. And I think it was December of last year where I decided, okay, you know what, let's just go for it. And before I could get the chance to get him the Rolex, my dad like passed away, which was a shame because I was ready, and I really wanted to kind of like give him something that he could remember, not just me or his family, but where he has come from. And it's a shame that I never got the chance to. It's a shame that I never got the chance to get that watch for him. And that's where I decided that this is more of a remembrance of him. Obviously, it's the Explorer 1 because I find the Explorer actually fits me better than the 2, the 36 mil, and just how sleek and just how the bracelet tapers down really, really nicely. And that 369, I really love the look of it. So I didn't get the Explorer 2 because obviously I wouldn't wear it that much. That's why. But yeah, this is a reminder, a consistent reminder of like life is really, really short. Life, you never know what's going to happen, and if you have the money to do something, you should probably do it. Especially if you're into watches, like it's important to save and have obviously your a safety net, but at the same time, life is way too short to skimp out on the things that you enjoy. Wish that this could have been something that I could pass to my dad, but now I remember it, and every time I look down, I remind myself of what I did not get to do, but also at the same time, it reminds me of how far my father has brought me, and I will probably never get rid of this. I wanted to engrave it, but so far nobody has offered. No, I have not found any engraving here, but one day I might. Yeah, and the last watch is the most recent pickup, and when I mean most recent, like that was like, I don't know, towards the middle of the year. This is the Carrera Skipper. Trend here, I really enjoy chronographs because I find that they look really, really nice. But when I first saw this, one of the reasons why I actually want to save this to buy this for like something that's going to come up in the future. I don't know, it could be another business venture or something to remember my dad. But because somebody was selling this like brand new out of the box at like 10 grand off, and I was like, okay, no, there's no way I would find a price this great. So I just jumped on it. And one of the reasons why I chose this one is because I knew my dad was a huge fan of the Tag Heuer brand. I was not really that much of a fan of Tag Heuer, but like again, when I saw this first, like it's just bringing back to my dad, like him liking Tag Heuer, me liking chronographs. And when I saw this, the fabric strap as well as the glass box look that Tag Heuer has been doing for their Carrera lineup, I thought this was really, really nice. I also love how like you have the colors that pop up and the chronograph hand that's like an orange, that it just really stands out in terms of like a watch. It wears very, very nicely. It has a nice power reserve. Yeah, so this is probably a watch that out of all the watches besides my Apple Watch, this is probably the next one that I wear pretty often because it's quite sporty, and I don't wear a lot of formal look. yeah, it also wears really nicely on my wrist, considering it's a 39mm. So yeah, really like it. So that's currently the state of collection for 2025. But a couple of watches that I'm looking for in the future are definitely something to do with my wedding, at least. We're planning, my girlfriend and I are planning. But I would like to have like a wedding watch, like eventually, maybe next year or in 2026. So I'm looking for that. It's either going to be still a toss up between like either, let's say, a Cartier Dumont, Santos Dumont. I was also considering the new Omega, first Omega in space. I really like the blue dial that's coming on, like that dark blue dial. It does stand out a little bit more than the Moon watch, so I thought that was a potentially interesting one. I just don't really like how the lugs are really long, so I might have to test it out in the future. One really interesting watch that I'm looking to get into is obviously Ming, because originally Ming's from Malaysia. I don't like their previous designs, but the current ones, like the minimalist or like the bluefin, I really like the modern take on it, and so that might be something that I'm looking into. Might look into a reverso as well, but that's about it. One of my philosophies now is, and one of the things you don't see any like Seikos or Casios here is, I like to wear my watches on rotation, and the thing is, I don't like to keep them inside. I don't like to have like a massive collection and then I don't wear any of them. So I don't want to collect too much, and in the end, like, I can't enjoy all the watches that I own. So I'm very particular, and I prefer saving up now than just buying a bunch and never wearing them at all. So yeah, that's the state of collection, where I hope to bring it in the future, in the next coming years. Hoping to do a lot more reviews of watches and things like that. So I guess stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess I will see you in the next one.